Juneteenth, another federal holiday. This is totally unnecessary. It's too obscure. It's vague. You ask different people what it means, they will give you different answers. But the whole thing worked as a stunt to get Trump. It undermined Trump back in 2020 when he wanted to hold that rally in Tulsa. And suddenly everybody in the mainstream media, Democrats, everybody, even some Republicans, Juneteenth. But Trump was right when he said this: I made Juneteenth very famous. There would be no holiday had it not been for the effort to undermine Trump about when he had a rally scheduled. You can look back. And by the way, if we want to celebrate the slaves being freed, we can look to President's Day and Abraham Lincoln, okay? Abraham Lincoln did it. The Emancipation Proclamation, beautiful words. They're etched in the side of the Lincoln Memorial when you go inside. Let's acknowledge him, because I've been looking through this and no one else really was talking about Juneteenth over the years. Martin Luther King, for all of his contributions, a federal holiday for Juneteenth was not on his list. Same goes for the late, great, they tell me, Congressman John Lewis. This was not a priority of his either. Jesse Jackson, you can look it up. He talked about a lot of things since the 1960s, and he's still around. Juneteenth wasn't one of them. Al Sharpton, he thought about and talked about money a hell of a lot more than he talked about Juneteenth, believe me. And to this day, he is about the money. Al Sharpton. Barack and Michelle Obama. Now, they were 8 years, right? Why didn't they come up with it? Why didn't they push it? In fact, given the opportunity, they blew it off. Like so many other things, they thought, hey, just by being here, we've done something for civil rights. So it's a holiday, and guess what? It's a counterproductive holiday. It's actually hurting people. The last thing this country needs is another opportunity to get wasted. And that's what people are doing, all right? We drink on the Super Bowl, we drink on Christmas, and people are drinking on this Juneteenth. And yeah, all across the country, pub crawls, yeah, Juneteenth bar crawl. Let's drink up to honor what happened in Texas all those years ago. You know, again, this country, we have major addiction problems all over the place. Yet another opportunity to drink or get high? No, because if you put this stuff together, especially in urban areas where the Juneteenth celebrations have been the most intense, you got alcohol plus guns plus time on your hands plus weed plus heat and the overall resentment of the system. What's that going to result in? Any guesses? Yeah, we had stampedes, we had shootings, we had people die, dozens of people injured in places like Washington, D.C., Harlem here in New York City, Milwaukee, San Antonio, Grand Rapids, Michigan, all across the country. This wouldn't be the first time that some liberal, mostly white people, but some of color, came up with a new federal policy that was a great big virtue signal aimed at helping communities of color. This was the Great Society, by the way, and it hurt communities of color. Everything they came up with in the Great Society and this latest trick of a holiday in June, no. And again, the heat, the tension. Ever hear of the phrase, a long hot summer? Started in 1967. Racial strife, time on your hands. We don't want any more of these. And probably this is the worst time of year to have another 3-day holiday. I'll get to that in a moment, but I still think Lincoln deserves all the credit. Have you noticed? President's Day isn't what it used to be. So many, though, have just bought this Juneteenth thing because, well, the culture is telling us this is cool. This is the place to be. Just join it. Be cool already. Even Fox News.
The principal timpanist for the National Symphony Orchestra sharing how he's working to uplift aspiring black musicians. Kevin Cork is live in Washington with this story.
The principal timpanist for the National Symphony Orchestra, a gentleman by the name of Javon Gilliam. He's terrific. He grew up in the great state of Indiana and has always had an interest in music.
That was basically the story. He happens to be black and he plays some fancy drum set. terrific. I just don't get it myself. Juneteenth. Fox was all in, though.
Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, June 20th, 2022. It is Juneteenth, and this was a federal holiday signed into law last year by Joe Biden.
Many people are at home today celebrating Juneteenth.
Thank you very much for joining us on this federal holiday. It's Juneteenth.
Today, our nation is marking its newest holiday, Juneteenth, a day that brought freedom to the last of all enslaved people here in the United States.
It's interesting because I've been celebrating it my entire life. I didn't realize till a couple years ago that a lot of people didn't know about it, didn't understand, the history behind it.
The occasion has been used. It's been politicized. And it was done so to hurt President Trump in the middle of that very important campaign of 2020. That's why it's a thing today. And I actually think it's the last thing we need to do more of. We all learned about slavery. They can pretend we didn't. We did. I remember learning about it in kindergarten, actually. But now this is a real thing. We call it black supremacy. White supremacy is awful, terrible, totally overblown. And I think that this might be a new thing. What do you think? Black supremacy? Because, you can pick up something and you see that somehow, black activists, the black community, a black person, you'll notice, and I know the sophisticates will say, oh, he just doesn't get it. He's being ignorant. Well, the B is capitalized. And I find it kind of weird that the W in white isn't capitalized. I mean, are they saying that one race is better than another? Kinda, maybe seems that way. There are some crazy people who believe that, by the way. There's some crazy people who believe white people are better, and there are some crazy people who believe black people are better. And at one point, the FBI had a term for it, BIE, Black Identity Extremism, because it's a real thing. You got black identity extremists, terrorists out there, yeah, but the FBI, they got shamed into canceling their own very important law enforcement terminology.
So nobody's being surveilled or investigated on the black identity extremism.
We don't use that terminology anymore. That was part of the reorganization of all of our domestic terrorism threat categorization. That terminology went away as part of this racially motivated violent extremism category.
How unfortunate, because there are black identity extremists out there, and they are flourishing in part because the FBI has been told to not pay any attention to it.